Welcome back to Movie Rewind. Today I will show you a thriller film from 2002, titled 1 Hour Photo. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. At the local police station, Cy is being processed. A detective, James, sits with Cy, and although Cy's lawyer is not yet present, James still wants to ask some questions. Cy decides to share his story. Cy works as a photo technician at a 1 Hour Photo in a big box store, a job he's had for 20 years. Photography is Cy's passion, and he is extremely thoughtful about the process of photo development, which he considers a vital service. Unfortunately though, he has no friends, relatives, or girlfriend. He lives alone with his pet hamster. Work is all he has, and he enjoys looking at people's pictures because they take photos of important memories they want to remember, not of things that hurt. His favorite clients are the Yorkin family. Nina and her son, Jake, come to his store often, but Cy only knows the husband, Will, through pictures. Whenever the Yorkins arrive, Cy rushes to the front desk, sometimes working so hastily that he makes mistakes on his work. Cy quickly takes over from his coworker, Yoshi, showing he has memorized Nina's address, the size of photos she likes, and everyone's names. Today, there is a picture left on Nina's roll, and Cy spends it on himself before promising to have her copies done before they close, even if she arrives after hours, which usually would mean picking them up the next day. Later, when Nina comes by for the finished product, Cy tells her that he made them bigger than what she asked for, free of charge. He also notices the pictures were of Jake's birthday, so he gifts the boy one of the shop's disposable cameras, saying it's a free gift for a client's birthday. Before Nina leaves, Cy notices a book she is carrying in her bag. When Nina makes it home, the family looks at the pictures together, and Jake explains to his dad that the last picture is Cy the photo guy. After dinner, Nina tucks her son in bed and Jake confesses that he feels bad for Cy because he looks sad and lonely, so Nina tells Jake to close his eyes and send Cy some good thoughts. Once Jake is asleep, Nina and her husband get into an argument about Nina's spending and they get so loud that Jake wakes up and hears the disagreement. Meanwhile, Cy walks to his car and discovers that someone has broken the windshield. He has dinner at a restaurant, where he reveals he has made an extra set of Nina's pictures for himself. The waitress asks him about the photos, and Cy replies that they are family pictures, calling Jake his nephew. Later at his apartment, Cy adds these pictures to his collection, which includes framed photos on his dresser, but also a very creepy wall dedicated to the Yorkin family. The following day is Monday, which is always the busiest day because people take lots of pictures over the weekend. Cy's store has many regular customers and Cy treats them all respectfully, from the lady that only takes pictures of her cats to the man that does adult scenes. Employees must only report animal cruelty and adult material that includes children, otherwise, it's not their problem what their clients take pictures of. That afternoon, Cy makes a scene while arguing with the machine repairman, who has lots of work to do and Cy called him over just because the machine has a barely noticeable issue. The mall's manager, Bill, sees this and approaches Cy while he's having lunch and daydreaming about being part of the Yorkin family as he stares at one of their photos. Cy hides the picture as soon as Bill sits in front of him, and after being scolded for the earlier incident Cy promises not to cause any more issues. Before ending the interaction, Bill reminds Cy that he's never used his vacation time, but also points out that Cy takes too long for his lunch break. Afterward, Cy comes across Will, who is doing some shopping in the store. Cy introduces himself and awkwardly tries to make small talk. But since Bill is watching from a distance, Cy cuts the conversation short, but only after telling Will that he's very lucky to have such a beautiful family and perfect life. Then, Cy tries to go back to his shop again and runs into Jake. The boy has a figurine in his hands that he wants to buy, but Jake's father said no and Cy promises to put it back on the shelf. After work, Cy has some coffee while reading the same book as Nina, then goes for a walk to the local fair. Whenever he finds a box with photographs, he looks through them as he thinks about the fact that people never take pictures of the little things, like their used band-aids or a wasp in the jello, even if those are the things that make up the true picture of their lives. Next, Cy goes to the Yorkins' house to sneak inside. He looks around every room, smiling when he sees his picture on the fridge amongst the family photos. He also uses the bathroom, puts on Will's clothes, and watches a game on TV while drinking beer and talking to the dog. When the Yorkins return, they thank Cy for house-sitting and Jake calls him Uncle Cy. Unfortunately, the moment is revealed to be Cy's imagination as he has never actually left his car. Sometime later, a woman, Maya, comes to the store to drop off some rolls of film. Maya looks familiar to Cy and he swears that he has seen her before, but cannot remember exactly where. After work, Sci goes to watch Jake at his soccer practice, pretending that it was coincidental and that he was just passing by. Since neither of Jake's parents are there, Sci decides to walk Jake home while sharing a bit about himself, explaining he used to be an unpopular fat kid that everyone bullied. He also gifts Jake the figurine he wanted, but Jake turns it down because he doesn't want to upset his father. Jake walks the rest of the way home on his own, but at least accepts to call Sci by his name instead of Mr. Some days later, Sci notices Nina shopping at the mall and discreetly follows her. When she sits down for lunch, Sci also gets some food and pretends to run into her by sitting at the adjacent table. The two of them make small talk, and Sci impresses Nina by quoting the book they are both reading. Towards the end of the day, Bill calls Sci to his office and explains there are discrepancies in the click count that translate into hundreds of extra prints that have not been paid for, all logged under Sci's time on the machine. Moreover, Bill mentions Sci's 90-minute lunches, spacing out in the middle of work, the scene he caused with the repairman, and the camera he gifted without paying for. In short, Bill has no choice but to fire Sci, although he allows Sci to at least finish out the week. Devastated, Sci spends the rest of his day sad and distracted. When Nina and Jake come to drop off a disposable camera, Sci isn't his warm and chatty self and he forgets the address he used to know by heart. Instead of processing the order the same day, Sci tells Nina that she can pick up the photos tomorrow. Once the pictures are ready, Sci begins crying as he looks over them to enjoy all the silly things Jake took photos of. After work, Sci does some thinking in his car and finally realizes he may know where he's seen Maya before. Sci returns to his apartment and looks through the Yorkins' pictures and to confirm that Maya is on Will's softball team. The next morning, Sci arrives at the store early to look at Maya's pictures, which had been developed by Yoshi. The image he had of the Yorkins being the perfect family is destroyed when Sci finds photos of Maya and Will together, confirming an affair. Sci finds himself in a moral dilemma between revealing Will's infidelity and respecting a client's privacy. At the end of the day, Sci says his final goodbye to Yoshi, but before leaving the mall for good he uses his store keys to open a glass display and steal a knife. Then, instead of going home, Sci waits outside for Nina to come to pick up the pictures, then follows her in his car. Jake is with her, and he looks through the pictures while his mother drives, causing her to almost drive off the road when she sees what's inside the envelope. It turns out that Sci exchanged the content of the envelopes and Nina got Maya's pictures, so now she's seen the truth. Although she doesn't comment on the photos, Nina begins crying. She and Jake go back home and have dinner with Will as if nothing had happened, which makes Sci furious while he spies on them from the street because he can't understand how Nina doesn't confront her husband. Later, when he returns to his apartment, Sci stares at his photo wall before going to bed, where he has a nightmare of himself standing in the middle of the empty mall with bleeding eyes. When he wakes up, he finds the figurine staring at him and impulsively goes to the wall to make some corrections. The next day, Sci begins his usual morning routine before starting a new plan in his unemployed life. First, he stops at a house in the suburbs to take some pictures where it is revealed that even his keychain has a picture of the Yorkins. Then, he goes to the mall to drop off his roll. Bill wants to forbid him from shopping there, but allows it for just today to avoid a scene. Afterward, Sci stalks Will and Maya who leave together for a hotel. Sci follows them inside and uses the available phone to pretend to be room service and find out what room Will and Maya are in. Then, he checks in and asks for a room on the same floor. Meanwhile, Yoshi has finished the development of Sci's role and takes the resulting pictures to Bill, who calls the police as soon as he sees the shocking content. They are all pictures of Bill's daughter playing in his home's backyard. James and another detective arrive on scene to investigate, and Bill calls his wife to tell her to take their daughter to her mother's house. Police are assigned around the store in case Sci comes back, but most importantly, 2 officers get a search warrant for Sci's apartment. Upon entering the space they are horrified to find the wall covered with the family photos with Will's face scratched off. Now that the cops know about Sci's obsession, the detectives rush to Nina's house and urge her to find Will and Jake. Jake is at a friend's house, but Nina can't find Will at the office when she calls. Suspecting what's going on, Nina tells Will's assistant that she knows of the affair, which gets him to confess where Will has gone. Back in the hotel, Sci goes to Will and Maya's room, covers the peephole with a sticker, and then knocks on the door pretending to be room service. As soon as Maya opens the door, Sci forces his way inside and threatens them both with his knife. After closing the drapes, Sci makes the pair get in inappropriate positions on the bed, then proceeds to take pictures of them while constantly degrading them and saying it's supposed to be a fun game. Once he's finished, Sci goes to his own room to wash and rest. A light at the window grabs his attention and he realizes it is the police siren. The detectives are coming for him after the receptionist confirms he's there, but thanks to seeing the car outside, Sci gets to leave his room before the cops find him, although they do find the knife in camera. Because there are guards at the main entrance too, Sci has to find a different escape route, and he ends up running through the hotel's conference room and kitchen. This eventually takes him through a corridor with an emergency door that activates an alarm when Sci opens it, so by the time he makes it outside, the cops are there to catch him. As he is arrested, Sci says to James that he only took pictures, while the other detective finds Will and Maya having a breakdown in their room. When Will returns home, Jake is very happy to see him, but Nina doesn't know what to think. This takes us back to the beginning of the story where Sci is still telling James everything that has gone through his mind so far. Sci can tell James is a good father and husband that appreciates his good fortune and would never cheat on his wife. At first, it seems like Sci is comparing James to Will, but then he begins talking about a man that made horrible demands of his children, implying that his own father had used Sci and his siblings to take sick, inappropriate pictures when they were still young. Sci is incredibly angry because Will had it all, yet he threw it away, meaning he isn't a good father either. James understands Sci better now and sees the trauma that shaped this poor man into what he is now. Feeling pity for him, James decides to share the pictures they developed from the camera they found at the hotel when Sci asks for them, even if they're evidence. Surprisingly, they aren't the dirty pictures, they're just photos of random objects from the hotel room, yet they help Sci imagine himself once again as part of Nina's family. Okay guys, thank you for watching. Please leave a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to see more.